Hari Om. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaramekam niranandamanandamadvaitapurnam param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham parabrahmarupam ganesham bhajema. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Welcome to session 127 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. In today's session, we will continue with our study of 17th chapter and take up verses from 10 to 19. At the end of this class, Chiranjeevi Hrishikesh will chant the verses of today's study. It's now recap time and Srimati Pannaga is here to take us back to the 9 verses we studied last week. After her recap, Dr. Hegde sir will give us the introduction of today's class. Over to you, Pannaga madam.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have now entered the penultimate chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna from chapters 2 to 15 has given us all the gnanam, the important self-knowledge that we need to attain the Parama Purushartha of moksha. Yet we feel we have a long way to go to reach this coveted goal. Lord Krishna diagnoses this problem as a problem of our minds not being refined enough to be able to retain and assimilate this knowledge. Unless our minds have acquired the required qualifications of viveka, vairagya, mumukshutvam, and sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi, and we lead a lifestyle that supports these values, the knowledge remains academic and cannot bring about the claimed transformation from samsari to jivan muktaha. Next slide, sir. Therefore, Lord Krishna dedicated the 16th chapter to teaching us these enabling values and ended the chapter by talking about the importance of knowing our scriptures, the Veda Purva part. Arjuna now suddenly has a question since he is filled with Shraddha and Bhakti for the Lord, but is not learned in the scriptures. Hence, the 17th chapter begins with his question. What is the status of those people who are unaware of the spiritual rules yet worship with Shraddha? Is this Shraddha Sathvik, Rajasic or Tamasic, O Krishna? In the next slide, we see the all-important quality of Shraddha that Arjuna has brought to the fore. There is no English equivalent for this loaded word. It can loosely be translated to mean complete faith and devotion. Lord Krishna elaborates on the 3 types of Shraddha, and hence this chapter is titled Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. Here, Arjuna's doubt echoes many of ours, as our Hindu scriptures are vast and written only in Sanskrit. So Krishna explains in verse 2 that for such good but scripturally illiterate people, their Shraddha is born out of their own nature, Swabhavaja. So whether their Shraddha is Sathvik, Rajasic or Tamasic depends on whether they themselves are Sathvik, Rajasic or Tamasic people. In verse 3, he reiterates that Shraddha Sattvanurupa Bhavati. A person's Shraddha undoubtedly depends on his or her character, which in turn is a result of his or her inherent nature and the values instilled in them by their family and environment. It is in the 4th verse that Krishna actually answers Arjuna's question that the type of Shraddha, as we will see in the next slide, can be inferred from the type of gods worshipped, the mode of worship, and the motive behind the worship. Sattvic people worship Sattvic gods like Rama and Krishna to achieve spiritual growth. The mode of worship is more at the mental level, turning our minds inward. The 5th and 6th verses talk about Rajasic and Tamasic worship. Lord Krishna criticizes such people who display Dambaha and Ahankara, pretension and egoism. This Rajasic form of worship is highly ritualistic and publicity seeking, offered to gods like Kubera, the Yakshas and Kinnaras who can satisfy their intense material cravings, Kama Raga Balanvitaha. Tamasic worship is performed to Tamasic deities like the Bhuta, Preta, and Pishachis, the ghosts and the spirits, with the sole intention of causing harm to those we don't like the Asuras. Lord Krishna also condemns those who undertake these severe forms of austerities like the Ghora Tapaha, stating that they are not prescribed in the scriptures. A Shastra Vihitam calls them Asuras, reminding us that if we torture our bodies, we are in turn tormenting Lord Krishna himself as he resides in every one of our bodies. Sa eva mam antaha sharirastam. In the next slide, Krishna moves on to classify food, that is ahara, yagna, tapaha, and dhanam, into the three types as they are very important for a seeker. Our Vedic tradition allows us to elevate all mundane activities to spiritual sadhanas by invoking the Lord's grace. Breathing becomes pranayama when deliberately practiced. Eating becomes prana agnihotram when I offer food first to the Lord inciting in my stomach as Vaishvanaraha. Lord Krishna prescribes a sattvic diet of freshly cooked vegetarian food consumed with gratefulness after offering it to the Lord. Such nourishing food, which is not too sour or pungent and taken in limited quantities, increases our longevity, mental strength, physical strength, health, comfort, and pleasure. In the next verse, we will learn about the type of food not to be consumed, followed by the three types of yagnaha, dhanam, and tapaha. Thank you, Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Panaga, for an excellent recap of the verses we studied in the last class. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. As we continue our study of the 17th chapter, titled Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. In this chapter, Sri Krishna will give us a very nice explanation on the topic of Shraddha, as we have already heard from Panaga, which we studied in the last class. In addition, we have 4 other topics, that is Ahara, Yajna, Dana, and Tapaha, most of which we will be studying in this class. Each of them classified as Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. This chapter will conclude with a very nice mantra that Sri Krishna will give us, the mantra Om Tat Sat. As this entire chapter is called Shraddha Traya, I will speak a little more about what is Shraddha, and whatever I'm speaking is based on a talk given by Swamiji. Let us see how Shraddha has been defined in Tattva Bodha. Shraddha ki drishi. What is the nature of Shraddha? Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasa Shraddha. That means whatever the scriptures speak about and whatever my Guru says, I have complete faith in them, and that is the definition of Shraddha. There is no appropriate English translation for Shraddha, because in the West, this principle of Shraddha does not exist. It is a combination of faith with devotion, and which comes after a very subtle form of inquiry. For example, how do we know that what my sense organs are informing me are true? I see so many objects in front of me. How do I know all of them are real? We normally take all these things for granted, but in our scriptures, all these things have been inquired into detail. And on that basis, on the basis on which I rely on my sense organs, the whole definition of Shraddha has come into being. Based on our own assessment of our sense organs, we have come to accept that whatever our sense organs inform us is a valid source of information. That means if I see a traffic coming in a particular direction, I know that is true, and therefore I protect myself in such a way that I'm not in the way of that traffic. So too with every other sense organs. So sense organs have a certain validity inbuilt in them, and which we have verified through our own experience. And in our tradition, it is called Upajivya Pramanam, which means all my 5 sense organs are a primary source of knowledge. That means based on this, whatever information I give to my mind takes appropriate decisions. And therefore, whatever these 5 sense organs give me are taken as an ultimate fact. So too, let us analyze what is Shraddha. Now, we are blessed with 5 primary sources of knowledge. Now, each sense organ reveals a knowledge in that particular field. For example, the eyes give me information about color and shape of all the objects. Now, what the eyes speak of cannot be confirmed by my ears or by any other sense organs. That means what information is given to me by one sense organ cannot be confirmed or contradicted by any other sense organs. So the 5 sense organs are sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. 80% of the information from the world comes to us from our eyes. We will see how crippling life can be if a person is not able to see. Now, a useful exercise would be to deliberately blindfold ourselves for about 1 hour and try to go about your daily activity and to see how important this function is. Otherwise, we take all these for granted. We see this in our clinical practice because so often when a person comes to us with a late stage of a brain tumor, it is possible that a person could lose vision considerably. Another area where people lose vision is because of brain tumors which occur on the nerve of the ear, affecting hearing. Only under such conditions we realize what it is to live in a silent world where there are no sounds, where we cannot hear traffic noise, where we cannot hear any public announcements, where we have to entirely rely on other sense organs like touch and sight. And especially when it becomes dark, it becomes very difficult. So this is the life difficulty for a person with hearing loss. During the pandemic, when so many people were afflicted by COVID, we realized the importance of the sense of smell. And when smell is lost, taste is also affected. So these two sensations go together. And quite often, even when a person has a common cold, there is loss of smell. And with loss of smell, there is loss of taste also. We don't realize the importance of sensation, particularly pain sensation. Because of pain sensations, we are able to keep the integrity of our skin. A lot of people who have paralysis very quickly develop pressure sores because the body is not able to sense the weight on that particular area. And if they are not properly taken care of, they develop pressure sores. The deformities that happen because of leprosy is again because of loss of sensation. In addition to these 5 primary senses, there is one more very important sense. Again, we realize this only when this sense is lost, and that is called the position sense. Now, whenever a person goes to a neurological clinic, one of the examinations that is done is to see with your eyes closed whether you are aware of the position of your limbs, and when it is moved up and down, how are we becoming aware of it? Sometimes this is called the 6th sense organ, but I will reserve the 6th sense for something else as of now. So in Sanskrit, again, coming back to Tattva Bodha, we have these 5 sense organs of perception, or those with which we get information, are Shrotam, Tvak, Chakshu, Rasana, and Granam. And these are the 5 sense organs. In addition to this world, there are, for students of spirituality, we know there are 6 things worth knowing. And that is, who is this Jiva? What is my true nature? I see a world around me. What is this Jagat? How did this Jagat come into being? If Jiva and Jagat is there, there must be a creator. Who is this Ishvara? I see so much suffering in the world. Is there a way out that is called moksha? What are the sadhanas that help me to do? We realize that none of these 5 sense organs will help us to answer these questions. To answer these questions, we need the 6th sense organ. And what is that? Our tradition says that there is a 6th sense organ. If you are willing, if you are interested, it will introduce one more, Upajivya Pramanam. And that 6th primary source of knowledge, just like these 5 sense organs, which we take as valid sources of information, which I take it as true because it has been confirmed, is Shraddha. Shraddha in the Vedas. And if I have Shraddha in my Guru, if I have Shraddha in the Vedas, suddenly I have one more sense organ that will help me to live in this world more meaningfully and to live a complete human life and to attain to Parama Purushartha. We will see that in a temple, people will be hanging around, but suddenly they get alert when the Arati is brought in. During the time of Arati, everybody become very alert, everybody become more devotional. What is the significance of the Arati? In a traditional temple, the Garbhagudi, where the idol is kept, is usually dark. And you will be able to see the Lord only when the Arati is lit and when the priest deliberately shows you the form or different forms of the God as the Arati is done. Symbolically, light is that which has revealed God to us. The Lord who was always there, I could not see because of my ignorance or darkness. But when the Arati has been lit, I've been able to see the Lord. And for this light of knowledge, which has indicated, which has revealed the Lord to me, and when the Arati is given to us, we treat it with great reverence because that is the reverence we give to the light of knowledge. Now, that is the kind of Shraddha that we need to have for Guru and the Vedanta Vakya. What happens if we do not use one of our 5 sense organs? What happens if we do not have Shraddha? What happened to Gandhari? It is just like that. If a person does not choose to use one particular sense organ, that aspect of the world is lost. If a person does not have Shraddha, then a person loses something very significant, the words of the Acharya and the Vedas. With that background, let us look into this rest of this chapter. And as students of Vedanta, let us see the importance of Shraddha. Because if I do not have Shraddha, no one else loses. I am the one who stands to lose. The gain will be a deeper understanding of my true nature. I understand the world around me. I get to discover the nature of God. I understand the nature of human suffering. I know that moksha is my birthright, and I know all the sadhanas that will help me to get there. Our opening speaker today will be Colonel Vijayan. And after Colonel Vijayan speaks, I will not come in between so that the speakers get a little more time. Colonel Vijayan, please.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Verses 10 and 11. We have seen from the preceding verses that a spiritually ignorant person is controlled by his Swabhava. And Swabhava being of 3 types, his lifestyle, puja, etc. will be either Sathvik, Rajasic or Tamasic. Continuing further, Bhagwan introduces Karma Yoga with a different name and calls it Sathvik Jivan, a lifestyle which is Sathvik in nature, where Rajasic is reduced and Tamasic is totally avoided. Coming on the same tune, continuing on the same tune, he introduces 4 topics, that is Ahara, Yagna, Tapas, and Dhanam. Verse 10 is the last of the last of the verses on Ahara, and talks about Tamasic Ahara, while verse 11 is the first of the next topic, that is Yagna. Coming to the verse. Yata yamam gatarasam puti paryusitam chayat uchchistamapi cha medyam bhojanam tamsa priyam. That which is stale, tasteless, putrid and rotten, refuse and impure is the food liked by Tamasic people. Next slide, please. Yata yamam. Yama means time. The 24 hours is divided into 8 yamas. So yama means a 3-hour period. Yata means gone. Hence, yata yamam means food cooked 3 hours before being eaten. It can also mean not properly cooked or undercooked food. Gatharasam means rasaviyuktam, tasteless, nutrientless, nourishmentless. Hence, Tamasic, puti, bad smelling, durgandham. Paryusitam, decomposed, cooked food kept overnight. Uchchistam, remnants of food eaten by others. It can be self-eaten food, which is kept for eating later. Amedyam. Medyam means fit for puja. Amedyam means whatever food cannot be offered to Bhagwan, food that cannot be used for yajna. Tamasa priyam. Such food is dear to the one in the mode of darkness. Next slide, please. Hence, as a thumb rule, avoid food that are succulent are Sathvik, food that are bitter, etc. are Rajasic, and food that are half-cooked is Tamasic. Therefore, for spiritual growth, avoid non-vegetarian diet, avoid all intoxicants, avoid all tobacco products, and avoid overeating. Verse 11. Now, yajna, the scriptures say there are 3 types of yajnas. One is the Nishkama Yajna, which is compulsorily performed. Second is the Kamya Yajna, which is performed for getting material benefits. And third is the Nisiddha Yajna, a yajna performed for damaging others. In Ramayana, we have an incident where Indrajit performed such a yajna to kill Rama and Lakshmana. However, it was thwarted by intervention of Hanuman. The verse goes, Aplankangshibhir yagno vidrishtoya ijyate yashtabhyam ebeti manaha samadhya sa satvikaha. That sacrifice, which is offered by men without desire or fruit and is enjoined by ordinance with a firm faith that sacrifice is a duty, is sattvic or pure. Next, please. Aplangshibhiha means not interested in anything other than moksha, without desiring any material benefit. Yagnaha, karmas done for the benefit of humanity. Every karma done with a bhavana of dedication to Bhagwan is a yagna. Example, the Pancha Mahayagna. Vidisitaha, those actions which has been prescribed by the scriptures for your inner growth. Morning prayers, morning japa, and morning puja. Ya ijyate, which is performed. Yastavyam eva, must be performed at all circumstances. Iti manaha samadhayaha, sincerely, wholeheartedly, phalam is immaterial. Satvika, in the mode of goodness. The Satvika Jivanam is talked about in the Karma Yoga chapter of chapter number 3. So one should follow these, compulsorily follow these yajnas in the form of Pancha Mahayagna. This not only gives Laukika Phalam, but also Swargam after death. And lastly, the Bhagwan says that this attitude should not be just limited to puja, but Lord Krishna says you have to convert all activities into a similar puja. Hari Om. Thank you.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, verses 12 and 13. The 17th chapter opens with a question from Arjuna to Shri Krishna about Shraddhayanvita Bhaktas who are illiterate about Shastra Pramanam but perform worship or sacrifice with faith in one's heart or Shraddha. Will you classify their Shraddha as Sathvik, Rajasic or Tamasic, O Krishna? Shri Krishna says, Shraddha is conditioned by the Swabhava born out of one's own nature, that is, the natural mental disposition of the person concerned, which is Trividha. How does one know whether they have Sathvik, Rajasic or Tamasic Shraddha? Swami Paramarthananda explains, Shraddha or faith is an invisible thing because it is a mental state. It is not physically perceptible. It has to be referred through Anumanam, that is, Shraddha will have to be inferred from the type of activity a person takes to. Here, Sri Krishna takes the type of puja an individual selects to find out what type of Shraddha he has. Puja or worship has three factors: object of worship, mode, and motive of worship. These three will determine whether puja is Sattvic, Rajasic, or Tamasic, and thereby inferring on the quality of Shraddha of the devotee. Scriptures prescribe varieties of karmas for spiritual growth and human benefit. And all these karmas are called yajna because in all these karmas, indirectly or directly, worship of the Lord is involved. From verses 17.11 to 13, Sri Krishna describes three types of yajna. Verse 17.11 described Sattvic yajna. Verse 17.12 is Abhisandaya tu phalam dhambaratam api chaiva yat ijyate bharata shreshta tam yajnam viddhi rajasam. O Arjuna, best of Bharatas, know that yajna which is performed expecting a result and also for the sake of show, ostentation, admiration to be Rajasic. Rajasic yajna are sakama karmani. All activities are done charged by the spirit of selfishness, seeking its fruit for external growth. Gross and tangible benefits like name, fame, money, status, position, possession, power, influence. These are kept in mind all the time. Else, acknowledgement is expected for whatever action is done. Rajasic yajna will become a form of business with God. Verse 17.13 is Viddihinam Ashrishta Annam Mantrahinam Adakshinam Shraddha Virahitam Yajnam Tamasam Parichakshate. They call that yajna to be tamasic, which is contrary to scriptural injunctions, which is performed without food cooked for distribution as prasad, without proper chanting of mantras, without giving proper dakshina, and without devotion and faith. Swami Paramarthananda says, Tamasic yajna is a puja in which everything is negative. All the scriptural injunctions are ignored and a self-determined process is followed due to laziness, indifference, or belligerence to suit one's convenience. So it is mantrahinam and vidhihinam, violating all rules. All yajnas are an opportunity to share one's possessions with other people. But in Tamasic yajna, the performer of the yajna does not honor the essentials required to make a yajna satisfactory. He does not give any dhanam voluntarily or gives the bare minimum. Shastras are very considerate to a devotee who cannot afford dhanam, but one should not abuse the option given and opt for adakshinam, that is, with no remuneration or donation given to priests and others, ashrishta annam, without distribution prasad, and feeding of holy people. Shraddha virahitam, there is no shraddha in the performer's mind. Thoughts like, what is the guarantee that this puja will benefit me or my family or my forefathers crops up. This devotee doesn't understand that the primary benefit of shraddha is for the performer. Such a faith is actually a form of faithlessness in God and scriptures. The lesson to be learned from these verses are, first, we question our motive and actions and thereby understand the type of shraddha we see in ourselves. We must try to elevate that root of our action to higher level, from tamas to rajas to sattva, thus developing chitta shuddhi. Because according to our Vedas, according to Sri Krishna, our very lifestyle has got influence on our capacity to receive and retain knowledge. Thank you, sir. Harihi Om.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, verses 14 and 15. Deva Dvija Guru Pragnya Pujanam, Sauchyam Arjavam, Brahmacharyam, Ahimsacha, Shariram Tapah Uchyate. Anudvegakaram Vakyam, Satyam Priyam Hitam Cha, Yet Swadhyaya Abhyasanam Chaiva, Vanmaya Tapam Uchyate. Here Krishna discusses two aspects of tapas. Tapas means austerity. It has two meanings. The specific meaning of tapas is voluntary self-denial or sharira pidanam. This is not the topic discussed here. The general meaning of tapas is any spiritual discipline. Krishna has categorized these spiritual disciplines under two headings. First, karana or instrument drishtya, kaika, vachaka and manasa tapa. And second, guna drishtya, sattva, rajo and tamasic tapas. These two verses describe karana drishtya, kaika and vachika tapas. What is kaika tapas? This is physical discipline. It could be in the form of pujanam, any physical ritual practiced regularly with shraddha. For example, deva meaning ishta devata pujanam, dvija or shastra pujanam, guru pujanam or prajna meaning jnani pujanam. This enables us to establish a fundamental relationship with God, which should not under any circumstances be overshadowed by incidental relationships of thought, possessions, obligations, human relationships, and daily transactions. Next is saucham, or physical cleanliness. Third is arjavam, or alignment of thought, word, and deed. Fourth is ahimsa, or physical non-violence. And finally, brahmacharyam, which means chastity for a grahastha or celibacy for a sannyasa. Next is vak tapas, or verbal discipline. Of the 10 jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, the vak indriyani is the most powerful. The presiding deity is Saraswati. The 4 mandatory parameters governing vak tapas are, first, anudvega karam, means avoidance of any form of verbal himsa. Next is satyam. Satyam means truthfulness. This is alignment of thought and word. This is in reality advaitam in the vyavaharika plane. With every lie, I create a rift, a disintegration in my personality, which gradually destroys me spiritually. The Mundaka Upanishad says, Satyam eva jayate. Truth alone wins. Wins what? Moksha. That means, irrespective of material failures, spiritual victory depends on Satyam. Third is Priyam. This means appropriate body language, facial expression, eye contact, pitch, the choice of words, and so on. And finally, Hitam. Hitam means whatever we speak should be beneficial, not only to us, the speaker, but also the listener. Sometimes, if the truth is unpalatable, we have to layer it with palatable truths. This means we should cushion criticism with praise. Now, is Vak Tapas practical? Yes. With practice, it becomes one's wisdom. When wise people talk casually, their words are worth recording for posterity, inscribing in stone. But when fools speak ever so vociferously, their words are just worthless. Sadbistu Leelaya Proktam Shilalikitam Aksharam Asadbi Shapate Nabhi Jale Likitam Aksharam. Thank you.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes, Manav Prasada Saumyatvam Maunamatmani Vinigraha Bhava Samshuddhirityatat Tapo Manasamuchyate. So in the next slide we see, with an example, what is Mana Prasadaha? Because previously we saw that two part of tapas. One is Vak and Kaika and Vak. That is related to the external instrument of our body. But when it is coming to the internal or subtle body, then it is very tough to handle. Just like example of this plane, if we are the pilot of the plane or the plane which is synonymous to our journey of spiritual journey, then the both wings represents your past, one of them, and one of them as a future. Now, if the pilot wants to take this plane higher and higher, he has to forget the past or future and concentrate on the present, which is in the straight direction. So here Swamiji is saying that Manas Tapas is very difficult. We see in the next slide, what is Saumyatvam? The first mental discipline that Krishna mentioned is Mana Prasada, enjoying a relaxed mind, enjoying an equanimous mind. And Saumyatvam is gentleness at thought level, so that it will reflect in both the words as well as deeds. If the thoughts are not gentle, words and action cannot be gentle, because the character of thought alone flows down to the words and action. Thought is like a seed, word is like plant, and action is like the tree. If you take care of the thought level and the seed level, then the tree will take care of itself. And that is Saumyatvam, gentleness. It is not freedom from thoughts totally. Freedom from unwanted thoughts is very important, because the unwanted thoughts alone becomes a noise of one's own mind. So when it is deliberately healthy thoughts, we do not look upon it as a disturbance at all. A quiet mind, quiet the mind, and the soul will speak to itself. This is Maunam and Atma Vinigraha. Next slide. Next slide, sir. That open-heartedness is called Bhava Samshuddhi. Bhava means motive. Samshuddhi means purity. So Bhava Samshuddhi means purity of motive, freedom from any hidden agendas. All these things will come under Tapaha, Manasam Uchyatehe. All of them is Manas Tapaha, mental discipline. So with this division of tapas, based on instruments of our organ-based instruments, with the next verse, Krishna will explain once again based on the gunas. And the verse goes, Shraddhaya paraya taptam tapas trividim nare afalakankshirbhir yukte sattvikam paryukchate. So, coming to the next slide. Based on the mode of practice, Krishna wants to name it as Paraya Shraddha Taptam. That is practice not for the sake of others, not because of pressure of the scriptures, or not because some Guruji or Swamiji is telling you to do, but because you are giving reverence to the scriptures themselves. You value this discipline, Paraya Shraddha. Then Phala Kankshi means you are expecting something when you do such things, but you should be Afala Kankshi Bhir, without any expectations, without any rewards as such. If people ask, what will I get if I do this tapas? Will I get money? Will I get fame? Will I get promoted? Will my business run well? So, because all humans have ulterior motive. In this slide, we see what a good example we can take with the love or devotion of Mirabai towards Krishna. It was a love which was, in a true sense, it was the means for the end. I'll explain this. When we ask what is the benefit I get out of tapas or any sadhana for that matter, I want to look upon this tapas as the means. And through this means, I'm asking for some end. Therefore, when I am asking for some benefit out of these values, actually it means I'm looking upon all these values as the means, and I look upon something else as an end. Means what profit is business? Profit name or fame or Padma Vibhushan or any such awards. Then the second question comes, if I am not promised any benefit, I will not have a motive to follow that discipline. What will be my motivation to tell the truth? It means you should value them so much that they themselves should become an end in itself. Dharma should not be means for money. Dharma should not be means for your profit. Dharma should not be means for material success. Dharma should not be means for name or fame. You should value dharma as such. What it should become as an end in itself. And dharma will become an end in itself only when you know its value. And that's when you will be called as Purushartha. As Rama was a dharmic Purushartha till the end. When he was in his exile, he led a life of Dharma Purusha. And when he came back, won over the evil, he led the life of Dharma Purusha. And this type of living is called Sathvikam Parichakshate. That is Sathvik Tapas. Hari Om.
Jai Gurudev. Let us see 18th and 19th verses. Satkaramana puchartha tapodambena chaivayat kriyate tadahi proktam rajasam chalamudruvam. This meaning that austerity, which is performed with pretense for the sake of praise, honor and worship, is said to be Rajasic, whose result is temporary and uncertain. We have seen in the first portion, in the verses 1 to 6, Krishna answers Arjuna's question regarding the faith. Second portion, we are seeing now verses from 7 to 22 deals with Ahara, Yajna, Tapa and Dana. Third portion from verses 23 to 28 deals with the sequence of famous mantra Om Tat Sat. We have already seen Ahara, Yajna, Sathvik Tapas in our earlier verses. Present verse 18th and 19th deals with Rajasic and Tamasic Tapas. This line, Satkara Mana Puchartha Tapo Dambena Chaivayat, means self-control and self-application pursued is not for the purpose of one's own inner development, but performed for the sake of gaining reputation, honor, and reverence in the society. Lord Krishna calls such people as hypocrites. The true aspirant
has nothing to gain from name and fame in the world, and he worships sincerely as an act of self-fulfillment. In the second line of 18th verse, Kriyate tadiha proktam rajasam chalam adruvam. A person who performs Rajasic tapas with wrong motives, their effect is unstable and transitory. 19th verse. Modagrahenatmano yat pidaya kriyate tapaha parasyotsadhanatham va tatsamasamuddahritam. Meaning that austerity, which is practiced by the torture of the body out of an erroneous notion or for the destruction of others, is said to be Tamasic. First line, Moda grahen atmano yat pedaya kriyati tapha, which means that austerity, which is practiced with foolish notion, with self-torture. Second line, we says, Parasyot sadhanartham va, tat tamasa muddahritam. For the purpose of destruction of others is said to be tamasic. When misconceived and wrongly practiced austerities are undertaken by anyone, which brings out sorrow and discomfort to oneself and others, that tapas, which is practiced with false notion or unhealthy resolve or for revenge, is called tamasic tapas. We find in Puranas, many people practice tapas for the sake of revenge. Like in case like Dristadhumna is born just for the sake of destroying Drona. In other case, Amba practiced tapas to be reborn to take revenge on Bhishma. Determination is no doubt good, but it should be with the right intention. This kind of tapas is called tamasic tapas, which causes hindrance in one's spiritual pursuit. Jai Gurudev.
Namaste, sir. Harihi Om Yatayamam Gatarasam Puti Paryashitam Chayat Uchishthamapi Chamedhyam Bhojanam Tamasapriyam Aphalakankshibhiryajño Vidhidrashtoya Ijyate Yashtavyameveti Manaha Samadhaya sa Sathvikaha Abhisandhayatu phalam dambarthamapi chaiva yat idyate bharata shrestha tam yajñam viddhi rajasam vidhihinam asrishtannam mantrahinam adakshinam shraddha virahitam yajñam tamasam parichakshate devadvijaguru yajñam pujanam shauchamarjavam Brahmarchayamahimsa cha shariram tapa uchyate anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate manaprasada saumyatvam maunamatma vinigraha bhava samshuddhirityetat tapo manasamuchyate Shriddhaya paraya taptam taptasthatrividam naraihi aphalakankshibhiryuktaih sattvikam parichakshate satkaramana pujartham tapodambhena chaivayat kriyate tadiha proktam rajasam chalamadruvam mudagrahenatmano yat Pidaya kriyate tapaha paratsyo sadhanartham va rajasam chalamadruvam harihi om Shri Gurubhyo namaha harihi om.
Thank you, Rishikesh, for your flawless chanting. Thank you, teachers of the day, for an informative session, and seekers for your active participation. On Monday, 26 December 2022, let us log in for a new session 41 of Disha for the discovery of inner strength and happiness at 6:45 p.m. In this episode of Disha, we'll continue study of 9th chapter along with Tattva Bodha topic on various levels of bhakti. Friends, as announced in our Gita Jayanti session of 2/12/2022 Friday, I appeal to all of you to kindly join us and offer your generous reverential offering as you have been doing always. The mode of payment to the account is displayed on the screen. It will also be sent to you in the Telegram group. I must add here that the decision of offering and the amount is purely voluntary and there is no compulsion at all. As you are aware, our classes are totally free and your entire contributions will be offered at the lotus feet of our gurus. Details of such offerings will be shared with you all. On that note, let us conclude today's session with our usual Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.